I'm very excited for the message. I just felt it's going to help someone. The title is The Joy of the Well. And it says here, drawing from the God who delights to give. Okay, that's the semicolon bit of it. And we'll go straight into the word. If I should ask you even before I begin, what do you think makes God happy? What do you think makes God happy? Just don't overthink it. Okay, good. Okay, other than you, what do you think makes God happy? What do people think makes God happy? Doing His will. Obedience, sticking to His plan. More theological questions, answers rather. But what does the general public think God makes God happy? The general public. When you love Him. Okay. Anyone else? Doing good things. How come I'm not hearing?
When you bring the little outside
In, okay. How come I'm not hearing praying and fasting? How about those things, guys? But usually, people think. Anyway, I feel like I can't outsmart you. So there's no point in even trying. Okay, you are too learned. But yeah, there is a verse here in Jeremiah 2 verse 13 that says something quite interesting. He says, "For my people have committed two evils." How many evils? Two evils. And he says this. He says, "They have forsaken me." That's evil number 1. Okay, the fountain of living waters. Say the fountain of living waters. It says, "They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters." And he says, and the second part, the second evil is, "and hewn themselves cisterns." Okay, to hewn is to carve out. It's a process. Okay, it's to dig. Okay, they have hewn themselves cisterns, but not just cisterns. It says broken cisterns that can hold no water. So it's giving us a scenario where God is, in a sense, expressing a bit of frustration because He says, "My people have forsaken me, the fountain of living water." They have left me, the source. You know, the fountain of living water is not just living water, but it is a source where the living water comes from. Okay, so they've forsaken that. And for some reason that appears strange to God, they have decided to dig up their own wells. Okay? And these wells, because of course they are dug by the hands of men, He says they are broken and they can hold no water. So it's interesting. Why would they do this? Why would you depart from the fountain of living water only to go spend your energy, your time, okay, to create a cistern of your own, but it doesn't even have the capacity to hold water, let alone produce living water. Okay, so there's that frustration that God is expressing in this verse. And He says here in the Message version, He says, "Stand in shock, heavens, at what you see." He says, this is the Message version of the same verse. He says, "Throw your hands in disbelief." He says, "This can't be. God's decree. My people have committed a compound sin. They walked out on me, the fountain of fresh flowing waters, and then dug cisterns that leak, cisterns that are no better than sieves." Okay? So God is expressing a kind of frustration in departing from what is life-giving and guaranteed, and in a sense easy because it is not your part to supply, to going to a place where you are, in a sense, working and striving and trying to carve out your own livelihood and supply, but it is not sufficient, neither is it satisfactory, because it says the cisterns are broken. And I feel like this verse explains very clearly the state that many believers are in. Remember, it says here, these are my people. These are not just strangers. These are people who are actually acquainted with God. It says these are people who, for some reason, they departed from me where I was their source and have decided to make something else their source, even though that source is not sufficient and it's not good enough. Okay? And this thing seems to trouble God more than we care. Okay? And why does it trouble God more than we care? Or why doesn't it seem to trouble us? It's because we have a misunderstanding of the things that please God. Okay? We have the equation backwards. Okay? Most of us think that God is pleased by the things that we do And so we place emphasis on our actions and on our performance, okay, as the things that please God. And in so doing, whenever we are talking about pleasing God, we are thinking about what can we do for God. Case in point, Mary and Martha, okay? Luke 10:38-42. He says, Martha welcomed Jesus, and while Jesus was in her house, Martha began to cook and to bring water and to do all these wonderful things, okay? And you would think that Jesus would be impressed by the level of servitude and the level of honor that she was shown by Martha. But Jesus was more concerned with actually delivering and giving life to both of them, whereas one was concerned in serving Jesus, serving God, thinking that that is what would please him. Are we understanding? So you have one sister who appears irresponsible by sitting and listening, and we have another sister who by the eyes of men appears responsible, but is actually in the wrong end of that equation. She should have been in a place to receive and to be served first, rather than seeking to serve. Okay? I didn't put that verse here because I thought it would be a lot, but you know the story. You know the story. It says Martha was distracted by much serving. And she actually said in her own words, Lord, don't you care about me? Which is interesting because when we are in that state of mind where we are concerned with the things that we need to do, it often leads to a place of frustration. It's the fact that she was not receiving from the Lord, rather she was seeking to give what she has not received, that she started to think that the Lord does not care about her. Do you see that? He says, Lord, don't you care about me? But is it true that the Lord did not care? No, because the Lord was in her house. You understand? But the order was wrong because she placed value on what she can do for God before ever coming to the place of sitting down to receive from him first. Okay? And that's what Martha did. Or that's what Mary did, and it was told of her that she has chosen the good part and it will not be taken away from her. Do you understand? So, in that whole situation, Mary neither felt uncared for nor frustrated because she was in the right posture. Do you understand? Martha, on the other hand, even though she was the one who opened the door for Jesus, her state of heart and the wrong order of that equation, even though Jesus was in her house, ended up feeling frustrated. Do you understand? So this verse and these verses that I'm highlighting here still speak to us who have Christ, okay, but have that order wrong, where we think that God is most pleased by the efforts that we put out. And we convince ourselves that the more I do in this direction, the happier he is with me. And when you don't see those two reconciling, frustration creeps in because you look at the effort you put in and you're like, God, me of all people should have been the one to receive or to do. You understand what I'm saying? So in a sense, it affects how you see yourself before God because you deal with yourself based on how you are acting and how you are performing. Are we understanding? Let's look at the story of this woman here. The story of the woman at the well. There's just a few things that I thought were interesting in how Jesus wants us to know what he is most interested in. Okay? Now remember, they had been out preaching, and he says in the verse 4, which I've not included here, that Jesus needed to go through Samaria. Okay? And I always thought that was a very interesting verse, John 4:4, because it's like he made a case to pass by that city, even though naturally it did not make sense. Okay? And he says here in the verse 6, he says, now Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, therefore, being wearied from his journey, you can see that he was already quite tired. He says, sat thus by the well. And he says, it was about the 6th hour, about noon. And he says, a woman of Samaria came to draw water. Are we understanding? And Jesus said to her, now this is the very interesting statement he makes. He says, give me a drink. Okay? Naturally sounds very normal. Okay? And naturally, she also responds in a very normal way. Because from her perspective, this is how things go. He says, give me a drink. And he says, for his disciples had gone away to a far city to buy food. And the woman of Samaria said to him, asks him, again, treating him naturally, how is it that you being a Jew? She never saw him at this point more than a Jew. She just saw him a Jew. He says, how is it that you being a Jew ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? Okay? And you know what? To some of us, this is how Jesus or God intercepts us. He finds us in our most natural state, okay? And he speaks to us in the manner that he knows that we can respond, okay? He would say, oh, I need some help here, you would think. But is it actually possible for you to assist God? Or is there anything that you can give God that he does not have? Do you understand? There is nothing. So even in the woman being asked for a drink, it's not that Jesus was really asking for a drink. It's rather a way for him to open the door for this conversation to take place. It's a setup. Jesus doesn't need much from this woman, and you're going to see. Do you understand? So sometimes God orchestrates such events where, and you know, when I think about my life, I actually see it to be true. That there are moments when I was growing, and still growing in the faith, that I was more concerned about what I am doing for God. And that was, in a sense, the lifeline of my salvation. It was what I was doing and what I was putting out that defined my standing before God. And that is how I would relate with God. Based on the things I have done. I have done this, I have done this, I have done this, I have done this. I have not done this, I have not done this. Okay, it's a good week because I have been able to accomplish so much for God. And you know what? It's the most natural way because it's a merit-based system. You believe that what God does, what good things I do for God, that these are the things that deserve a reward. The problem is it cracks. It's a cistern that can hold no water because it is performance-based. Do you understand? It's a cistern that can hold water, like it says in Jeremiah 29:13. So it says, then the woman said to him, how is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? Now, you can see her level of understanding and interacting with Christ is the most natural. And he says, and then now Jesus responds in a way that shows you now this is actually what he wanted to say, or this is where the conversation was supposed to go. He says, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that says to you, give me a drink. So you see the question, give me a drink, was not really genuine. Okay? It was not genuine because it was a leading question to get her to a certain point. And many of us, that's how God deals with us. You might find that in the early years of believing, you found strength in what you could do for God. Do you understand? And maybe that's how you prayed, that's how you perceived. You were so convinced that it was your effort. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And you only read up to that point. Forgetting that the next verse, it says, so it is God who works in you both to will and to. So I feel like we start on that front. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And we stay there for a better part of our salvation journey before we add the other section to complete the verse or to complete the thought. Do you understand? So Jesus speaks to this woman and says, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that says to you, give me a drink. He says to her, he would have given you what? Living water. So if you ask, just up to that point, what was the intention of Jesus coming to the well? What was the intention of Jesus coming to this well? To give her living water. Do you understand? So you see how it says in Jeremiah, they have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, okay? And hewn themselves cisterns that can hold no water. Jesus is coming to say and to prove to us that, look, my desire for you is not you to give me your tithe and your offering. My desire is first that I give you what? Living water. Okay, are we understanding? And he says, the woman said to him, sir, again, still not quite understanding where Jesus is coming from. Says, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep, because she assumes that Jesus is talking about Jacob's well, where Jesus is talking about himself. Do you see? So sometimes we are saved, yes, but it's like we are speaking a different language with God. It is this same Martha who Jesus said, had you been here, our brother would not have died. Okay? And when she meets Jesus, Jesus says, you know what, don't worry, I am the resurrection and the life. And the same Martha responds, he says, yes, God, I also believe that he will be raised up at the last day. Do you understand? There is this misinterpretation, like it's God is saying one thing, you are hearing another thing. Do you understand? And you are saying another thing, but God is saying it back, and you hear a completely different thing than what he means, it's not that God is speaking out of two mouths. Rather, it is our understanding that is catching up. The Bible says, once I have spoken, twice. Once you've spoken, twice I have. That you can actually hear something. It's the same thing, but you hear it twice. That the second time comes to bring clarity to what exactly God meant when he said what he said. So you can see that she does not understand. She says, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water? Okay, now you can see where the conversation is going. And he says, are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself? He says, as well as his sons and his livestock. And Jesus answered and said to her, he says, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, this water that is in the well. He says, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. And he says, but the water that I shall give him when I come, the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up to everlasting life. And then the woman said, now finally, this is where the conversation should have started. So the woman said, give me this water that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw. Are we understanding? What is the thought here that Jesus is trying to express to this woman? He says that I have something that I want to give you. Do you understand? I have something that I want to give you. You think that what I need from you is a drink or a glass of water. But lo and behold, no. If anything, there is something that I want to. And you have to come to that understanding. Okay, are we together? Let's go to the next scripture. It says here, in still following this conversation, he says, and at this point, this is the part where he said to her, okay, but you've had 5 husbands, Okay. He says, and at this point, the disciples came and they marveled that he talked with a woman. Yet no one said, what do you seek? Or why are you talking with her? Because this whole thing was not supposed to happen. Why are you talking, first of all, not just a woman, to a Samaritan woman? But you see the kind of thing where people are looking at, they're already judging you, but they cannot say much. Jesus also was judged by none other than his disciples. Okay? It says, they looked and says, what do you seek? Why are you talking with her? But they didn't say anything. It says, and the woman left her pot and went away into the city and said to the men, come and see a man who told me all the things that I ever did. Could this be the Christ? Then they went out to the city and came to him. And he says now in the 31, he says, in the meantime, his disciples urged him. Now listen to what Jesus is about to say. His disciples urged him, Rabbi, eat. Okay? And they said to him, I have food to eat which you do not know. Therefore, the disciples said to one another, has anyone brought him food? Has anyone brought him anything to eat? And Jesus said to them, my food is to do the will of the one who sent me and to finish his work. So even when he's talking about food, just like as he's talking about water, there was still miscommunication. She's talking about the water in the well. Jesus is talking about the water that he's giving. They're talking about food from the market. He's talking about the food of doing the will of the Father. And I want us to understand what that is in relation to this. He says, in the meantime, they pressed him. I'm reading the message. Rabbi, eat. Aren't you going to eat? He told them, I have food to eat you know nothing about. It says, and the disciples were puzzled. Who could have brought him food? And Jesus said, the food that keeps me going is to do the will of the one who sent me, finishing the work that he started. Remember, he's saying this after taking a detour to the well, meeting a Samaritan woman, and expressing to her that he wants to give that woman water. So he's telling them, my will, or rather God's will, was actually to meet this woman and give her whatever he had within her. That was God's will. And he says, my food is to do God's will. Do you understand? He's saying that what fulfills me and what satisfies me is to give you what I was given to deliver to you. Do you understand? What makes me happy, what makes me glad, what delights my heart is not the water that you can give me or the food that you can bring for me from the market, but rather it is to do the will of the one who sent me. Do you understand? And that understanding gives color to verses like John 10:10. He says, I have come that they may have life and have it more what? Abundantly. The NLT says it like this. It says, my purpose. Say my purpose. I know you've asked yourself, what is your purpose? You've asked yourself that question. Have you answered it? I hope so. I really hope so. But Jesus has a purpose. And he says, my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. That was his purpose. And he knew it. So if you're talking about Jesus living out his life, it was to go and meet the Samaritan woman and give her living water. Not so concerned with what he gets from that interaction, but rather his food that she receives. His food is that he receives. She receives what he has for her. Do you understand how we and God might have different perspectives, where your greatest thought is to think, what can I do for God? Do you understand? But he, in his mind, he's actually thinking, how can you come to the point of being willing to receive what I want to do for you? Are we getting it? Are we understanding? That's why we said, the joy of the well, drawing from the God who delights in giving to us. You wait, you will see how important it is that we understand this. It is crucial because it helps us relate with God more genuinely. Do we understand? Good. Let's go. In Luke 15, we know these parables. There are 3 parables. The parable of the lost sheep, the lost son, the lost coin. I'm not going to go into deciphering those parables, but I want to focus on a theme, a common pattern in this Luke 15. And let me know if you see it. It says, and what man of you having 100 sheep, if he loses one, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go search for the one which is lost until he finds it? And he says, and when he has found it, he says he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. It says, and when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep, which was lost. Where did the joy of the shepherd come? In finding the lost? Are you seeing that? Where did the joy of the shepherd come from? Do you understand? Are we getting it? Look at it again in the lost coin. It says, or what woman having 10 silver coins, if she loses a coin, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? It says, and when she has found it, she calls her friends and neighbors together, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which is... Where is the joy coming from? From finding that which is... What delights, because all of these parables, which are following one another, one is describing Christ, the good shepherd, okay? I look, in my interpretation. Another is describing this woman, a representation of the Holy Spirit, okay? And their part in salvation. And the last one, of the last son, of course, representing God and how he has sent, how he is waiting for us to return. But all of these figures of the Trinity are expressing joy in the same thing. Finding that which is lost. Rejoicing in that which has been restored. Rejoicing in that which has been brought back to life. Are we understanding? That God's joy is not in the deeds that we do for him, but rather it's in his ability to get us back to himself, to restore us, to put us where we need to be. Are we understanding? That's God's ultimate joy and ultimate desire. And he says here, and he rose and came to his father, but when he was still a great far off, his father saw him and had compassion. This is a prodigal son. And ran off and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Great. Now these, you know those words? Those are the words that we think delight God. Do you know that? Just like that young man, when he was looking at the pig's food and it was looking amazing to him, he says, I will go and say of my father, I am not even worthy to eat with your servants. And we do this rehearsing where we feel like, okay, he is more impressed in how I articulate my apology, and that is what will guarantee maybe my reconciliation with him. But notice, very interestingly, he says, Father, I have sinned against heaven. Okay, yeah. Anyway, I'm not saying of course we confess our sins, but it is not the confession of your sins that guarantees your forgiveness. Hallelujah. Amen. What guarantees your forgiveness? What guarantees your forgiveness? It's the death of Jesus Christ on the cross. Because if you ask for forgiveness and Christ did not die, who is forgiving you? Do you understand? Are we getting it? So we weight our confession of sins above the sacrifice of Christ on there. Look at this young man. He says, and he rose. He says, but when his father saw him, he says, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I am no longer worthy to be called your. He thought that kind of contrite confession is what would turn his father's heart. But look, how did the father respond? He did not even respond. He says, but the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his hand, sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. What was the source of the father's joy? Was it the contriteness of the son? Was it how sorry he was? No. It was the fact that he had come back. Do you understand? And he says, for my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. It says, and they began to be merry. The source of joy, of God's joy, is not in what you deliver to him. It's not in your deliverables. Do you understand? That if you're really thinking about what God makes God happy, it's not in how much you're able to accomplish for him in a space of time. No. It's in the fact that you are reconciled and you are brought back to him. Now, when you deal with God with that understanding, your relationship with him flourishes in the right environment. Do you understand? You don't run the risk like Martha, okay, to come to a place where you don't see that the Lord cares for you, not because he doesn't, but because we are cumbered about with much serving, with much doing. Are we together? Are we understanding it? So, in as much as Christ's purpose is ensuring that we have life, it also delights him so much and rejoices his heart when we are restored and we find life. Are we together? Let's go to the next one. Now, this is a very beautiful story of the woman with the issue of blood, okay? And the lesson is simple, but the story is deep. And one thing I noticed, actually, if you look at the way the Bible is written, the masses and the crowds are always following Jesus, okay? But Jesus is also always going to the one person out there who could not have received help. Do you understand? He's going to the leper. He's going to raise Jairus' daughter. He's going to Lazarus. He's going to the places where people are lost and things are lost. He says, I came to seek that which was lost. Are we understanding? He says, and so it was when Jesus returned that the multitude welcomed him. For they were all waiting for him. And behold, there came a man named Jairus. And he was a ruler of the synagogue. And he fell down at the feet of Jesus and begged him to come to his house. For he had only one daughter, about 12 years old, and she was dying. He says, but as he went, the multitude thronged him. He says, now a woman having a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent all of her livelihood on physicians and could not be healed by any, came from behind and touched the border of his garment. He says, and immediately her flow of blood stopped. And Jesus said, who touched me? Now again, Jesus says something that is likely to be misunderstood, because as he says, who touched me, they are thinking that someone is about to be scolded. But rather, no, he wants to highlight what he's been trying to show them all along, that this is the kind of relationship I want to have with you. So he says, look, he says, who touched me? What did they say? They all denied it. He says, Peter and those with him said, Master, the multitude throng and press you, and you say, who touched you? Because they're understanding it differently. Okay, they're seeing that everyone is in contact with you. So how can you ask who is touching you? Okay, but Jesus is speaking of a different kind of touch, or rather, let me say it like this, what touches his heart. Do you know? There are many things that go on in a day, but there are a few moments that can touch your heart. Do you understand? And that's what he means. He says, who touched me? They're like, everyone is touching you. But no, he means something specific. And Jesus said, somebody touched me, for I perceived power going out from me. And he says, now when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him. Still not sure. He says, and she declared in the presence of all the people the reason she had touched him and how she was healed. You see, she touched Jesus for a reason. I don't know if you understand. He says she declared the reason that she touched him. The multitudes were not touching him for any reason. They were touching him because he was around. Are we understanding? In fact, if you read the story in Matthew, it says, "For she kept saying to herself, if I touch the hem of his garment, I will be made whole." She had an intention. She had something that she knew Jesus had that was for her, that she believed in. Are we understanding? Are we getting it? And although she probably did not have the theology that we know about, all she knew is that I have tried physicians and they have wasted me. And this could be my only shot. So I choose to believe that this man, whoever he is, he has something that can rectify my condition. Do you understand? She did not go and say, "Jesus, I have followed you for the last 3 weeks. Okay? I have offered by my food to your disciples. I have, what else could they have done? I packed the 12 baskets with them when they were leftovers." You know, there's a way we come to God with our CV and our resume, almost as if to justify what we have done to receive our portion of blessings. How many of us have done that before? How many of us do that sometimes? We all do sometimes, but we're asking God to help us, that we move from that place of, it's an unstable place, and we come to a place of the certainty of God's love. That it is not what he does for, it's not what we do for him that moves him. God, in fact, is already moved because of Jesus. Do you understand? Are we getting it? Because when you're in a tight fix, it's easy to start to think, maybe I'm here because I messed up here. Do you understand? And you start to calculate and say, maybe the only way God would help me is if I take the following steps. And just like someone who is starting to twist themselves in a net, okay? You get caught up in your own performance or lack thereof, okay? And you cease from becoming like this woman, and you start to be the multitudes who are thronging him. Do you understand? Who are touching him, but with no awareness of what it is that they are actually interacting with. Do you understand? But this woman, because of, it says here, she declared to him in the presence of all the people the reason she had. Do you see the deliberateness, the intention that was behind this woman's action? She was not just around him. She knew that there's something that was going to proceed from him into her. And he says, and how she was healed immediately. Now, look at what Jesus says, because for her, she still doesn't understand, why is he asking who touched me? And everyone else is kind of still looking. It's okay, why is Jesus wanting? The woman has already declared why. And Jesus said to her, listen, he said, daughter, be of good. She announced, don't be afraid. He says, he affirms her. He says, your faith has made you well. In other words, this is what I'm talking about. Like, if these people around me can learn from you and from this action to understand that, look, I am encouraging and I'm inviting you to actually draw from me, because this is the will of him who sent me. Do you understand how God anointed Jesus Christ of Nazareth to heal all that were sick and afflicted of the devil? This is his purpose. So this woman was aligned in his purpose by knowing that that is where her healing was going to come from. And Jesus encouraged that touch. And he's encouraging us today to also reach out and touch that garment, not to just throng him, but to have a reason behind how we are interacting with him, to know that he is actually the answer that God sent for us in our situations, that we should not seek other fountains, but rather we should go to that fountain of living waters instead of trying to hewn broken cisterns that can hold no water. Are we understanding? Are we getting it? Good, let's go. Now, in conclusion, story of Jabez, which I think is very interesting in relation to what we're discovering. I would ask you, how, if I should ask you a question, how can you be more honorable than your brothers? Or the rest, if you have sisters only. How can you be more honorable than them? What will you say? Just non-theologically speaking, stop reading, just tell me what you think. Tell me, work hard, go to school, get your master's. What can you tell me? How can you be more honorable? In the eyes of God, at least, what do you think? Obedience to your parents. Anyone else? Hey, How can you be better than the rest? Humility, 48 laws of power, and all these other things. But listen to the story of Jabez, which I find very interesting. Very short story, we all know, many sermons on it. But I thought it was very interesting why the Bible calls Jabez honorable. It's simpler than it looks. It really is simpler than what we make it out to be. Because it says here, now Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. Why? How? What did he do? And he says, and his mother called his name Jabez because I bore him in pain. And he says, and Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me and that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain. And he says, so God granted him what he requested. Now, in all that we have read, where did Jabez's honor come from? Right. His honor did not come from great things he did. His honor came from the fact that he simply requested God or drew from the well. Do you understand? He was in a fix. He had a weird name. He was born in a certain circumstance. But by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, the man did what I'm saying simply, but what many of us don't do. He just reached out to God and said, God, look, just bless me. Bless me. Enlarge my territory. Let your hand be upon me, that it would keep me from pain or from evil so that I don't cause pain. And as simple as that, this man was esteemed above his brothers, not for any unique, special reason, but simply because he knew how to draw or to request or to get what he needed from the source, from the living water. Do you understand? Jabez's honor does not come from anything honorable he did. There is no account of him doing anything amazing except being born and making this request. Are we understanding? He says Jabez was better than his brothers. Why was he better than his brothers? He says a man of honor. His mother had named him Jabez, saying, oh pain, saying, a painful birth I bore him in, great pain. And Jabez prayed to God of Israel, said, Lord, bless me, give me land, large tracts of land, provide your personal protection, don't let evil hurt me. He says, and God gave him what he asked. Is it too simple? Yes. Is it that simple? Yes. That God is saying to us that, look, the purpose for which I came is for you to have life. But if we seek life from other sources and from other places and from broken cisterns, we will continue in this cycle of proximity to Jesus but never receiving the healing or the deliverance that we need, because somehow we see him and he's there, but we do not perceive that there is that which he has for us. Rather, we are concerned with what we can do for him or what we should do for him. And in that way, we confuse the equation and become Marthas where we should be Marys. Are we understanding? Because it says here in Ephesians 3, it says, now to him who is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above. That has never changed. Do you understand? So sometimes the situation looks very, very difficult. But I want to challenge you to actually just turn to the fountain of living water, Jeremiah 2:13, as opposed to a broken cistern that might seem to have water. He says, but it cannot hold it. He says, now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we think, ask, or imagine, according to the power that works in us, says, to him be glory forever. He's saying to us that, look, God is still able today to do what he did for that woman with the issue of blood, what he did for Jabez, what he did for the woman at the well, what he did for Mary. All these examples of people who did the simple thing of turning to him and saying, Lord, you are my source and I trust you. Are we understanding? And understanding that the Father's joy and delight is not in your ability to deliver your OKRs or whatever it is, goals you have set, but rather it is understanding his the disposition of his heart towards you in giving you what you need in this life. Are we understanding? It says in Luke 12:32 in conclusion, it says, do not fear. Say, do not fear. Little flock. It says, for it is your Father's good pleasure. It is your Father's what? It is his what? Not just pleasure, but the thing that delights him the most. He says, it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Do you understand that? It is your Father's what? To give you the kingdom. God is most happy when you're in a position to receive the things that he has prepared for you. God is most delighted and pleased when your heart is open and recipient to what he has in store for your life. I know the walk can seem dicey because sometimes our effort, maybe for a moment they seem to yield result. But in your mind, let it always be known that this God that I am serving, well, when I say serving, this God that I am serving, actually, if anything, it is his service towards me. Remember, Jesus washed the disciples' feet. Did you get it? It's almost like we're saying, you cannot serve God before you have received service from God. Do you understand? Do you get what I'm saying? That his objective for you is not that you come and work in the church and that is how you're in good graces with him. No. His objective is for you to learn that first and foremost, it is his pleasure to give you the kingdom. It is his pleasure to satisfy you with life. It is his purpose. That is why he came. He says, I came that you may have life. I came that you may have. Do you understand? He came that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Are we together? Let's be up on our feet.